The man in the expensive wool coat moved through the pre-dawn darkness like a phantom, his breath forming clouds in the frigid January air as he approached the aging Honda Civic, parked 3 spaces down from his reserved spot. Vincent Mercer had built his commercial real estate empire from nothing, acquiring and developing properties across the Northeast until his portfolio exceeded $200 million. He negotiated million-dollar deals before breakfast, commanded boardrooms with a single glance, and had been featured in Forbes twice. Yet here he was at 5:30 in the morning, brush in hand, clearing snow from a car that belonged to a woman who did not even know his name. The irony was not lost on him. Zara Mitchell worked as a junior architect at Patterson and Holmes, the firm that occupied 3 floors in one of his downtown buildings. Vincent had first noticed her 6 months ago when he stopped by for a quarterly inspection. She had been standing in the lobby, her arms full of blueprint tubes, struggling with the revolving door while talking on her phone wedged between her shoulder and ear. He had held the door, and she had flashed him a smile so genuine and warm that it had stopped him in his tracks. That smile had lingered in his mind for days. He began finding excuses to visit that particular building more frequently. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to occasionally see her arriving in the morning or leaving in the evening. He learned her schedule without meaning to, learned that she always brought her lunch in a canvas bag, learned that she wore her dark hair in a ponytail when she was running late, and that she had a habit of tilting her head when she was thinking hard about something. Then winter had arrived with a vengeance, and Vincent noticed that Zara always arrived at the office looking exhausted on snowy mornings. One day he overheard her telling a colleague that her building did not have covered parking, and she had to wake up 40 minutes early just to clear her car. She lived alone, she mentioned, and sometimes the snow was so heavy she worried about being late to important client presentations. The next morning, Vincent arrived at his building at 5:30 instead of his usual 7. Her car was easy to identify, the modest blue Civic with the dent in the rear bumper and the university parking sticker fading on the back window. He cleared it methodically, swept off the hood, the roof, the trunk, and carefully scraped the ice from all the windows. Then he returned to his Mercedes and waited. When Zara arrived 2 hours later, he watched from his office window as she approached her car, stopped, looked around in confusion, and then smiled. That smile alone had been worth the lost sleep. He had been doing it every snowy morning for 2 months now. Vincent knew this was bordering on absurd behavior for a man in his position. He was 32 years old, ran a company with over 300 employees, and had women actively pursuing him at every charity gala and business function he attended. Yet he could not bring himself to simply walk up to Zara Mitchell and introduce himself properly. Something about her made him want to take his time, to know more before he potentially ruined whatever this strange connection was with the reality of who he was and what he represented. Women reacted differently when they learned about his wealth. Some became immediately interested in ways that felt transactional. Others became intimidated or suspicious. He wanted to know how Zara would look at him when money and power were not part of the equation. So he cleared her snow in secret and told himself he would find the right moment to introduce himself properly. The snow fell harder, and Vincent worked faster, his expensive coat dusted with white. He did not mind the cold or the early hour. There was something meditative about this simple act of service, something that grounded him in a way his high-stakes business dealings never did. He finished and stepped back to inspect his work. Perfect. She would never know. Vincent returned to his car, drove it into his reserved underground spot, and headed up to his office. His assistant would not arrive for another 2 hours, which gave him time to review the contracts for the Philadelphia acquisition in peace. What Vincent did not know was that Zara Mitchell had been sick 3 days ago with a stomach flu and had left work early. She had forgotten her laptop and returned to the office that evening to retrieve it, arriving just as the snow began to fall. And there, in the parking garage, she had seen a man in an expensive coat approaching her car with a snow brush. She had been too far away to see his face clearly, but she had watched, frozen in confusion and curiosity, as he methodically cleared her car. Then he had gotten into a black Mercedes and driven away. The next morning she had arrived extra early, thinking perhaps it had been a one-time mistake, someone who thought it was their car. But when she woke at 5 in the morning 2 days later to another heavy snowfall, she made a decision. Zara dressed warmly, made a thermos of coffee, and drove to the office at 5:15 in the morning. She parked a level below her usual spot, in a location where she could see her car but remain hidden in shadow. Then she waited. The minutes ticked by slowly. Zara sipped her coffee and questioned her sanity. What was she doing here? Maybe it had been a fluke. Maybe it was building maintenance, though that made no sense. The company only cleared the entrance areas, not individual cars. At 5:35, a figure appeared. Even from a distance, even in the dim parking garage lighting, Zara could tell this was not a maintenance worker. The man wore what looked like a very expensive dark coat, and he moved with a confidence that spoke of someone accustomed to authority. He went straight to her car and began clearing the snow with practiced efficiency. Zara's heart hammered. Who was this person? Why was he doing this? She waited until he finished, watching as he stepped back to inspect his work with what looked like satisfaction. Then he turned to walk back toward the executive parking section, and for just a moment, the overhead light illuminated his face. Zara's breath caught. She knew him, not well, but she had seen him before. Several times, actually. He was the man who had held the door for her months ago, the one who had smiled at her in a way that made her stomach flutter. She had seen him occasionally in the building after that, always impeccably dressed, always seeming to radiate a quiet power. She had asked her colleague Sarah about him once casually, and Sarah had nearly dropped her coffee. "That is Vincent Mercer," Sarah had whispered urgently. "He owns this building. He owns half the commercial real estate downtown. He is worth like $200 million. Why are you asking?" Zara had brushed it off, said she was just curious, but she had thought about him more than she cared to admit. There was something about the way he carried himself, something in his eyes when their gazes had met briefly in the lobby, that made her feel seen in a way she could not quite explain. And now he was clearing snow from her car at 5:30 in the morning. Zara sat in her car, mind spinning. This made no sense. Why would Vincent Mercer, a man who could probably buy her entire apartment building without blinking, spend his early mornings doing something so mundane for someone he barely knew? She drove home in a daze, called in sick to work, and spent the day trying to process what she had discovered. Part of her felt like she should be creeped out, but the action had been so genuinely kind, so clearly without expectation of anything in return, that she could not muster any fear. Instead, she felt something else entirely, something warm and confusing and thrilling. The next snowfall was predicted for 3 days later. Zara made another decision. This time, she did not hide. Vincent approached Zara's car at his usual time, snow brush in hand, only to stop short. Someone was sitting on the hood. Even in the dim light, he recognized her immediately. His heart lurched. Zara Mitchell sat wrapped in a puffy winter coat, a knit hat pulled low over her ears, holding 2 travel mugs. When she saw him, she smiled that smile that had started this whole thing and held up one of the mugs. "I brought coffee," she said. "Figured you might need it, considering you have been waking up early to clear my car for the past 2 months." Vincent stood frozen, every prepared excuse evaporating from his mind. He should say something. He was a man who commanded boardrooms, who negotiated with the sharpest business minds on the East Coast. Words were his weapon of choice. Yet in this moment, facing this woman with snowflakes catching in her dark hair, he found himself utterly disarmed. He started, then stopped. "I can explain." "I hope so," Zara said, though her tone was warm, not accusatory. "Because I have been trying to figure out why Vincent Mercer, who I am told is one of the most successful real estate developers in the state, has been acting as my personal snow removal service." He moved closer, accepting the coffee she offered because it gave him something to do with his hands. "You know who I am." "I figured it out recently," she said. "Before that, I just knew you as the guy who held the door for me and seemed to show up in the lobby more often than building owners probably need to." Vincent felt heat creep up his neck despite the cold. "You noticed that?" "I did." Zara tilted her head, that gesture he had seen her make a dozen times from afar. Up close, it made his chest tight. "So are you going to tell me why, or do I have to guess?" He could lie. He could make up some story about building security, about wanting to ensure tenant satisfaction. He had built his career on knowing when to reveal information and when to hold back. But looking at Zara, at the openness in her expression, at the way she was giving him a chance to be honest, Vincent found he could not do anything but tell the truth. "I saw you struggling with the revolving door months ago," he said. "You smiled at me when I held it, and I have not been able to stop thinking about that smile since." He paused, took a breath. "I started coming by more often, hoping to see you again. When winter came and I heard you telling someone how difficult the snow made your mornings, I wanted to help. But I also did not want to be Vincent Mercer, the owner of your building, the guy with money and power who might make you uncomfortable or feel obligated. I just wanted to do something kind for someone who made me feel something I had not felt in a very long time." The words hung in the cold air between them. Zara's expression had shifted, softened, and Vincent could not quite read what he saw there. "What did you feel?" she asked quietly. Vincent met her eyes. Hope, interest, like maybe there was someone out there who could see me as just a person, not as a business opportunity or a trophy or a threat. He gave a self-deprecating laugh. "Though I suppose I have completely ruined that now by acting like some kind of parking garage stalker." "You are not a stalker," Zara said firmly. She slid off the hood of her car, landing lightly on her feet in front of him. They were close now, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. "You are someone who wakes up before dawn to do something kind without expecting anything in return. Do you know how rare that is?" "I did expect something," Vincent admitted. "I expected to see you smile when you realized your car was cleared. I watched from my office window the first few times. That smile was always the best part of my morning." Zara's breath caught, visible in the cold air. "Vincent Mercer watches me smile from his office window." "Zara Mitchell sits in parking garages at 5 in the morning to catch him," he countered. She laughed, and the sound echoed in the concrete space, warm and genuine. "Touché." She sipped her coffee, studying him over the rim. "So what happens now?" "Now," Vincent said, making a decision, "I stop clearing your car in secret like a coward and ask you properly if you would like to have dinner with me. Just like that, just like that." He set down his coffee on the hood of her car and faced her fully. "Zara Mitchell, would you have dinner with me? Not as your landlord or building owner or whatever professional relationship we technically have. Just as Vincent, a guy who thinks you have the most beautiful smile he has ever seen and would very much like to know you better." Zara's smile grew, radiant and joyful. "Vincent, a guy who clears my car before dawn, I would love to have dinner with you." Relief flooded through him so intensely he almost laughed. "Yeah, yeah." She glanced around the parking garage, then back at him with a mischievous glint in her eye. "But I have one condition." "Name it." "You let me finish clearing this snow with you right now. Because if we are doing this, if we are trying this, I want to start as equals." "Deal." Vincent looked at this woman, this brilliant, surprising woman who was meeting him exactly where he was, and felt something settle in his chest. Something that felt like it might be the beginning of everything. "Deal," he said, handing her the snow brush. They worked together in the quiet morning, occasionally bumping shoulders, sharing the coffee, talking about nothing important and everything that mattered. By the time they finished, the sun was beginning to brighten the eastern sky, and Vincent could not remember the last time he had felt this content. "I should go home and get ready for work," Zara said, though she made no move toward her car door. "What time do you need to be in?" 9. Vincent checked his watch. "I have a meeting at 8:30, but I am canceling it." "What? You cannot cancel a meeting because of me. Watch me." He pulled out his phone and typed a quick message to his assistant. "Done. My building, my rules. I would rather spend the morning having breakfast with you than discussing commercial leases." Zara shook her head, but she was smiling. "You are kind of crazy, you know that." "Completely," Vincent agreed. "There is a diner 3 blocks from here. Best pancakes in the city." "Have breakfast with me, Zara. Let us start this properly." She studied him for a long moment, and Vincent held his breath. Then she nodded. "Okay, but I am driving myself and meeting you there." "Baby steps, Vincent." "Baby steps," he agreed, though he was grinning like an idiot. The diner was exactly as Vincent had promised. A hole-in-the-wall place with cracked vinyl booths and a waitress who called everyone honey. They slid into a corner booth, and for the first time, Vincent felt like he could just be himself. They talked for 2 hours. Vincent learned that Zara had grown up in Rhode Island, the youngest of 3 sisters. She had always loved drawing buildings, even as a kid, and had worked her way through architecture school with a combination of scholarships and waitressing jobs. She had been at Patterson and Holmes for 3 years, slowly building her portfolio and reputation. She loved what she did, but admitted the long hours and competitive environment were exhausting sometimes. Zara learned that Vincent had started his first business at 22, flipping houses with money borrowed from his grandfather. His parents had been teachers, both dead now, gone too young in a car accident 5 years ago. He had built his empire partly to make them proud and partly because he had needed to throw himself into something after losing them. The success had come almost accidentally, opportunities building on opportunities until he looked up one day and realized he had become exactly what business magazines wrote features about. "But it is lonely," he admitted, surprised at his own honesty. "Everyone wants something. A deal, an investment, an introduction, access. I have not had a real conversation with someone who did not know my bank balance in longer than I care to admit." "Well, I definitely Googled you after I found out who you were," Zara said. "So I do know your approximate bank balance. Or at least what Forbes claims it is." Vincent tensed slightly, waiting for the shift he had seen so many times before. The new calculation in someone's eyes, the subtle change in behavior. Zara leaned forward. "And you want to know what I thought when I read about how you built your company from nothing? When I saw the articles about your projects and developments?" "What?" I thought, good for him. "And then I went back to thinking about the fact that you had been clearing my car in secret for 2 months, because that told me more about who you are than any article ever could." She reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. Your money is not why I am sitting here, Vincent. I am here because you did something kind without asking for recognition. I am here because, when you talked about watching me smile, I felt the same flutter I have felt every time I have seen you in the building. I am here because I want to know the real you, not the Forbes version. Vincent turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through hers. Her hand was warm and fit perfectly in his. I want to know the real you too. They sat like that, hands joined across the sticky diner table, and something shifted between them. Something deeper than attraction, more solid than infatuation. A foundation. I should really go home and change before work, Zara said eventually, though she did not pull her hand away. How about I drive you, Vincent offered. Then you do not have to come back for your car later. That is very transparent, Vincent. You just want to see where I live. Guilty. He grinned, unrepentant. But I also legitimately want to make sure you get home safely and maybe convince you to have dinner with me tonight. Tonight. Too soon, Zara laughed. Most people wait more than 2 hours between asking someone out and scheduling the actual date. I am not most people. I am starting to realize that. She squeezed his hand. Okay, dinner tonight, but somewhere normal, please, not anywhere that requires a jacket and tie. I know just the place. They left the diner together, and Vincent drove Zara to her apartment in his Mercedes. She lived in a modest building on the east side, the kind of place where young professionals lived before they could afford anything better. Vincent walked her to the door, and they stood in the weak morning sunlight, neither quite ready to say goodbye. Thank you for not being weird about this, Vincent said. About me doing the whole secret snow removal thing. Thank you for doing it, Zara replied, and for being honest about why. That took courage. I will pick you up at 7. 7 is perfect. Vincent leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull back, and pressed a soft kiss to her cheek. See you tonight, Zara Mitchell. See you tonight, Vincent Mercer. He walked back to his car feeling lighter than he had in years, and when he glanced back, she was still standing in the doorway, watching him with that smile. The day dragged interminably. Vincent tried to focus on work, but found his mind drifting constantly to Zara. To the way she had looked sitting on her car hood in the early morning light, to the warmth of her hand in his, to the easy way conversation had flowed between them, no pretense or performance necessary. At 6:30, he left the office and drove home to change. He had meant what he said about keeping things normal, so he opted for dark jeans and a sweater instead of his usual suit. Still put together, but more approachable. When he arrived at Zara's building at 7, she was waiting in the lobby. She wore jeans and a soft blue sweater that brought out the gold in her eyes, her hair loose around her shoulders for the first time since he had known her. She was beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. "Hi," she said, a slight flush on her cheeks. "Hi," he replied, suddenly nervous. "You look incredible. You clean up pretty nice yourself for a parking garage snow clearer." They took his car to a small Italian restaurant in a neighborhood far from the business district. It was the kind of place Vincent had discovered years ago, before his success, and had kept returning to precisely because no one there cared who he was or how much money he had. The owner, Marco, greeted him with a warm handshake and showed them to a quiet table in the back. "This is perfect," Zara said, looking around at the cozy space with its checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. "How did you find this place?" "I used to come here when I was first starting out," Vincent said. "Back when I was eating ramen most nights, and this was my one splurge every few months. Marco always treated me like I belonged, even when I definitely could not afford to be there. After things took off, I kept coming back. He has never once mentioned my business or asked for anything. He just serves incredible food and tells terrible jokes." As if on cue, Marco returned with wine and did indeed tell a terrible joke about a priest and a rabbi. Zara laughed, and Vincent watched her, memorizing the way her eyes crinkled at the corners. They ordered food and settled into conversation as naturally as they had that morning. Vincent found himself telling Zara things he had not talked about in years, about how scared he had been after his parents died, how he had thrown himself into work as a way to avoid grief, about the guilt he sometimes felt that his success had come after they were gone, that they never got to see what he had built. They knew, Zara said firmly. Parents always know. They saw who you were becoming, and I guarantee they were proud long before the money came. How can you be so sure? Because I see who you are, and I have known you for less than a day. She reached across the table for his hand again, the gesture already feeling natural. You are someone who wakes up at dawn to clear snow for a stranger, someone who remembers the people who were kind when you had nothing. Someone who values genuine connection over impressive credentials. Your parents raised someone with character, Vincent. That is the part that matters. Vincent swallowed hard, emotion tightening his throat. Thank you for saying that. I am only saying what is true. They talked through dinner, through dessert, through multiple cups of coffee. The restaurant gradually emptied around them until they were the last ones there, and Marco finally came over with a gentle smile. I hate to interrupt, he said, but my wife will kill me if I am not home by midnight. Vincent checked his watch, shocked to see it was 11:30. Marco, I am so sorry, we lost track of time. No apologies needed. It does my heart good to see you with someone who makes you smile like that. Marco winked at Zara. You keep him honest, yes. Do not let the business consume him. I will do my best, Zara promised. They left the restaurant and walked slowly back to Vincent's car. The night was cold but clear, stars visible despite the city lights. Vincent did not want this evening to end. He could not remember the last time he had felt so comfortable with another person, so completely himself. I had a really wonderful time tonight, Zara said as they reached the car. Does that mean you will go out with me again? Is tomorrow too soon? Vincent laughed, relief and joy flooding through him. Tomorrow is perfect. He opened the passenger door for her, then hesitated. Zara, I know this is moving fast. If you want to slow down, I will understand. She looked up at him, her expression serious. You want to slow down? No, he admitted. I feel like I've been waiting my whole life to meet you. The last thing I want is to waste time pretending I do not feel what I feel. What do you feel? Like I found something I did not even know I was looking for. The words came easily, more honest than any business pitch he had ever made. Like for the first time in years, I want to think about something other than work. Like maybe I could actually build a life, not just a career. Zara's eyes shimmered. I feel that too. It is terrifying and exciting, and I do not want to slow down either. They stood there in the parking lot, close enough that Vincent could count her eyelashes, feel the warmth of her breath in the cold air. He cupped her face gently, giving her every chance to pull back. When she leaned into his touch instead, tilting her face up toward his, he closed the distance and kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, a question. Then Zara's hands came up to his chest, fingers curling into his sweater, and the kiss deepened. Vincent felt it everywhere, a warmth that started in his chest and spread outward until his whole body hummed with it. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. That was, he started. Yeah, she agreed. They stood like that for a long moment before Vincent reluctantly stepped back. I should get you home. You have work tomorrow. So do you. I am the boss. I can be late. Such an abuse of power, Zara teased. The drive to her apartment was quiet, comfortable. Vincent walked her to her door again, and they kissed again in the hallway, softer this time but no less affecting. Tomorrow. Vincent confirmed. Tomorrow, Zara agreed. But maybe something casual. I feel like we should balance fancy dinners with normal people activities. What did you have in mind? I do not know. What do you do for fun, Vincent Mercer? He thought about it and realized with some embarrassment that he could not remember the last time he had done something purely for enjoyment. I honestly do not know any more. Zara's expression softened with understanding. Then we will figure it out together. That can be our project. I like the sound of that. One more kiss, and then Vincent forced himself to leave before he could talk himself into staying longer. He drove home with music playing, something he never did, and caught himself smiling at red lights. The next 3 weeks were the best of Vincent's life. He and Zara fell into a rhythm that felt both exciting and remarkably natural. They saw each other almost every day, stealing lunches when Zara could break away from the office, sharing dinners at hole-in-the-wall restaurants Vincent had never tried, taking long walks through the city despite the cold. Vincent found himself leaving work at reasonable hours for the first time in years, delegating more to his capable team, trusting that the business would survive without his constant attention. The world did not fall apart. In fact, several of his executives commented that he seemed more focused during the hours he was in the office, more decisive and clear-headed. "Happy looks good on you, boss," his assistant remarked one afternoon, and Vincent had to agree. He introduced Zara to his small circle of genuine friends, the people who had known him before the money. They loved her immediately, particularly his best friend David, who had been his roommate during the early struggling years. "She is good for you," David said bluntly during a basketball game where Vincent had brought Zara to watch. "I have never seen you this relaxed. Do not mess this up." "I am trying not to," Vincent replied, watching Zara laugh at something David's wife said. "She is different from anyone I have ever met." That is because she is not interested in Vincent Mercer, real estate mogul. She is interested in the guy who used to eat ramen and play video games all night. That guy still exists, apparently so, David grinned. "About time you let him out again." Zara integrated into his life seamlessly, but Vincent was also careful to be part of hers. He met her sister Emma when she came to visit, endured the protective older sister interrogation with good humor, and apparently passed whatever test Emma had been administering because she hugged him hard before leaving and whispered, "You better take care of her." "I will," Vincent promised, and meant it with everything in him. It was not all smooth sailing. There were moments when Vincent's wealth created awkward situations. Like when they went to buy coffee and Vincent automatically handed over his black credit card without thinking, and Zara had to pull him aside and explain that she needed him to remember she was operating on a normal person budget, that she wanted to pay her own way sometimes, that the money imbalance made her self-conscious. "I am sorry," Vincent said, genuinely chagrined. "I forget sometimes. The money has been part of my life for so long that I do not think about it." "I know you do not mean anything by it," Zara replied, "but I need to feel like an equal partner in this, Vincent. I cannot compete with your resources, but I also do not want to feel like I am being taken care of like a child. You are right. I will be more careful." They worked through it, establishing boundaries and communication patterns. Vincent learned to check before making grand gestures, to value experiences over expensive gifts. Zara learned to accept when Vincent wanted to treat her to something special, recognizing that generosity was part of how he showed love, as long as it did not become the only way. Because it was becoming love. They had not said the words yet, but Vincent felt it growing between them, deepening with every conversation and shared moment. One Saturday morning 6 weeks into their relationship, Zara arrived at Vincent's penthouse apartment for the first time, He had held off on inviting her there, aware that the place was ostentatious in ways that might make her uncomfortable. But she had asked to see where he lived, and he had run out of reasonable excuses. "Holy shit," Zara said, standing in his living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Vincent, this is like something from a magazine." "Is it too much?" he asked anxiously. She turned to him, and there was no judgment in her expression, only curiosity. "It is very you. Successful, powerful, impressive." She walked to the window, looking out. "But also kind of empty. Where are your personal things? Photos, knick-knacks, stuff that tells me about who you are." Vincent looked around his apartment and realized she was right. It was beautifully decorated by a professional, filled with expensive furniture and art, but utterly impersonal. He could not remember the last time he had actually chosen something for the space himself. "I have been busy," he said weakly. "You have been hiding," Zara corrected gently. "This is a showplace, not a home. When did you stop letting yourself have a home, Vincent?" The question hit deeper than she probably intended. Vincent sank onto his designer couch, suddenly tired. "After my parents died, I sold their house because I could not stand to be there without them. I moved into this place and hired someone to make it look good. I never thought about making it feel like mine because I was barely here anyway. Work was easier than being alone with my thoughts." Zara sat beside him, taking his hand. "You are not alone anymore." "No," he agreed, looking at her. "I am not. So maybe we start making this place feel less like a hotel and more like somewhere you actually want to be." She gestured around. "You need photos, books that are not about business, maybe a plant or two, though I will have to teach you how not to kill them. Normal human stuff." Vincent pulled her closer, overwhelmed by affection. "When did you get so wise?" "I have always been wise. You are just now smart enough to appreciate it." They spent the day reorganizing his apartment, going through his things and finding pieces that actually mattered. Photos of his parents that had been boxed up got framed and displayed. The expensive art that meant nothing to him got taken down and replaced with prints. Zara helped him choose things that reflected his actual tastes rather than what a decorator thought a wealthy man should display. "This is better," Zara declared, stepping back to survey their work. "Now it looks like a person lives here." "A person and hopefully soon a regular guest?" Vincent asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. She leaned back into him. "Are you asking me to start staying over, Mr. Mercer?" "I am asking you to consider this place as somewhere you are always welcome. A drawer in the dresser, space in the closet, a key if you want one." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "I like having you here. It makes this place feel less empty." Zara turned in his arms, her expression soft. "That is a big step. I know, no pressure if it is too soon." "It is fast," she admitted, "but this whole thing has been fast, and it feels right." She kissed him, slow and sweet. "Okay, a drawer. Let us start there and see how it goes. A drawer is good." They ordered takeout and ate it on the floor because Zara insisted his dining table was too formal for casual meals. They watched a movie curled up on the couch, and Vincent realized this was what had been missing from his life. Not just a relationship, but this sense of ease, of being able to exist without performance or pretense. Zara fell asleep against his shoulder halfway through the movie, and Vincent just held her, watching the city lights twinkle outside his windows, feeling more at peace than he had in years. 2 months into their relationship, Vincent took Zara to meet his grandfather. Thomas Mercer was 83, sharp as ever, and living in a retirement community that Vincent paid for but Thomas pretended to afford on his own. He was the one who had loaned Vincent the money for his first property, the one who had believed in him when it was just wild dreams and no track record. "So this is the girl who has my grandson leaving work at reasonable hours," Thomas said. shaking Zara's hand with a grip that was still firm. I was beginning to think he was going to work himself into an early grave. I am doing my best to prevent that, Zara replied, smiling. They had lunch in Thomas's apartment, and Vincent watched nervously as his grandfather grilled Zara about her work, her family, her intentions. But Zara handled it beautifully, answering honestly and asking her own questions in return. By the end of lunch, Thomas was laughing at her jokes and showing her photos from Vincent's childhood. "I like her," Thomas announced after Zara excused herself to the restroom. "She is not after your money and she does not take your nonsense. Marry her." "Grandpa, we have been dating for 2 months. So, I knew I wanted to marry your grandmother 2 weeks after meeting her. When you know, you know." Thomas fixed him with a stern look. "You do know, do not you?" Vincent thought about waking up and his first thought being about Zara, about how every good thing that happened, his instinct was to share it with her, about how the future he imagined now always included her presence. "Yeah," he admitted, "I know." "Then do not waste time, boy. Life is short and happiness is rare. When you find it, you hold onto it with both hands." On the drive back, Zara was quiet, looking out the window. "What are you thinking about?" Vincent asked. "Your grandfather told me that his biggest regret was not having more time with your grandmother. That they had 40 good years together, but he wishes they had married sooner, had more time." She glanced at him. "Do you ever think about that? About time and how we spend it?" "I have been thinking about it a lot lately," Vincent admitted. "Before I met you, I was just going through motions. Building a bigger company, making more money, but not actually living. You changed that. You changed things for me too. I was so focused on advancing my career, proving myself, that I forgot to actually enjoy my life." Zara reached over and took his hand. "I am happier now than I have been in years, Vincent. Me too." That night, lying in Vincent's bed with Zara curled against his chest, he finally said the words that had been building for weeks. "I love you," he whispered into the darkness. Zara's breath caught, and she pushed up on her elbow to look at him. Even in the dim light from the windows, he could see the emotion in her eyes. "I love you too," she replied. "I think I have loved you since that morning in the parking garage when you could have made excuses, but chose honesty instead." Vincent pulled her down for a kiss that was different from the others, deeper and more certain. This was not the tentative exploration of new attraction, but the claiming of something permanent, something real. They made love for the first time that night, and it was everything Vincent had not known he was missing. Not just the physical pleasure, though that was overwhelming, but the emotional intimacy of it. The vulnerability and trust, the way Zara looked at him like he was everything she needed, the way he felt like he could finally let down every last defense. Afterward, they lay tangled together, and Vincent felt something settle deep in his chest, a certainty that this was it. This was the person he wanted to build a life with. The next morning, Zara woke to find Vincent already up, standing at the window with his phone. "Everything okay?" she asked, voice still rough with sleep. Vincent turned, and his smile was different, bigger. "I just made a decision." "What kind of decision?" "The kind where I stopped prioritizing work over everything else." He came back to the bed, sitting beside her. "I have been thinking about what you said, about making time for life. And I realized that I have been building this company like it is the only thing that matters. But what is the point of success if I do not have anyone to share it with? If I am too busy to actually live?" Zara sat up, sheet wrapped around her. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that I am restructuring, promoting my VP to COO, giving him more responsibility, cutting my hours and my direct involvement in the day-to-day. I built this company, but I do not have to run every single aspect of it anymore. I have good people. It is time I trusted them." "Vincent, that is huge." "I know, but you are worth it. Us is worth it. He took her hands. I want to travel with you. I want to take long weekends and random weekday afternoons off. I want to be present for our relationship, not just someone who squeezes you into the margins of my schedule. Zara's eyes filled with tears. You would really do that? I already started making calls. It is done. Vincent cupped her face, thumb brushing away the tear that escaped. You gave me my life back, Zara. The least I can do is actually live it. She kissed him hard, then pulled back with a watery laugh. You are making me cry before coffee. That is playing dirty. I will make you coffee to make up for it. You better. The changes Vincent implemented took a few weeks to fully execute, but he meant what he said. He stepped back from the daily operations, delegating authority and trusting his team. It was terrifying at first, years of control, freak tendencies warring with his desire for a better balance. But Zara was there, supporting him through the transition, celebrating when things went smoothly and problem-solving when they did not. His business did not fall apart. In fact, freed from micromanagement, his team thrived, bringing fresh ideas and new energy to projects. Vincent found he enjoyed the role of strategic advisor more than he had enjoyed being in the weeds of every decision. And the time he gained back, he spent with Zara. They took a long weekend trip to Vermont, staying in a cabin with no cell service and no demands on their attention. They walked through snow-covered forests, made love in front of the fireplace, and talked about everything and nothing. Vincent taught Zara to ski, and she was terrible at it, spending more time falling than actually skiing, laughing the entire time. I do not understand how you make falling look so graceful, Vincent said, helping her up for the dozenth time. Years of practice, Zara replied, snow in her hair. Also, I have decided that skiing is overrated. Let us go back to the cabin and get warm. Best idea I have heard all day. They spent the rest of the afternoon in bed, and Vincent thought that this simple joy of being together without agenda or schedule was worth more than every successful deal he had ever closed. Spring arrived, and with it came new challenges. Zara was offered a promotion at Patterson and Holmes, a senior architect position that would mean more responsibility and better pay, but also significantly longer hours. She agonized over the decision. I have been working toward this for years, she told Vincent over dinner at his place. But I am worried about what it will do to my life, to our relationship. What do you want? Vincent asked. Forget about what you think you should want or what anyone else expects. What do you actually want? Zara was quiet for a long moment. I want the job. I love what I do, and this is recognition of all the work I have put in. But I also want time with you. I do not want to become the person you were before we met, so consumed by work that there is nothing left over for life. Then we make it work, Vincent said firmly. We communicate. We schedule date nights and protect them. We take vacations. We remember that work is important, but it is not everything. He took her hand. I will support whatever you decide, but do not turn down an opportunity you want because you are afraid. We will figure it out together. Zara took the promotion. The first few weeks were rough, her hours stretching as she adjusted to the new role. But they made it work, exactly as Vincent had promised. They had breakfast together every morning, even if one of them had to be out the door early. They instituted a rule that at least 3 nights a week were reserved for each other. No work allowed. They texted throughout the day, little messages that kept them connected even when physically apart. We are getting good at this, Zara said one evening, curled up on Vincent's couch after a particularly long day. The balancing act. We are, Vincent agreed, though I have a thought about how to make it easier. What is that? Vincent took a breath, nerves suddenly making his heart race. Move in with me. Zara sat up, eyes wide. What? Move in with me, Vincent repeated. "You are here most of the time anyway. Half your clothes are in that drawer we set up. You have commandeered one of my bookshelves, and yesterday I found your coffee mug in 3 different rooms." He took her hands, holding tight. "I love having you here. I love waking up next to you and falling asleep with you. I love the way you have made this place feel like an actual home. Move in officially. Make this our place." "Vincent, that is a big step. I know, but I am ready for it. I want it." He searched her face. "The question is, do you?" Zara's expression cycled through surprise, consideration, and then joy. "Yes. God, yes. I have been half living out of a bag for months anyway. I want this to be home." Vincent kissed her, relief and happiness flooding through him in equal measure. "Yeah, yeah," Zara laughed, bright and joyful. "Though you are helping me move, I am not doing it alone. Obviously, I have moving services on speed dial." "Of course you do." They moved Zara in 2 weeks later. It was not much. Her apartment had been small and most of her furniture stayed behind, but the personal items she brought transformed Vincent's penthouse completely. Her books filled the shelves, her art went on the walls, her plants took over the window sills. The place had felt like his before. Now it felt like theirs. "This is perfect," Zara said, standing in the middle of the living room and surveying their combined life. "This is exactly right." Vincent wrapped his arms around her from behind, chin resting on her shoulder. "Welcome home." Living together brought new intimacy and new challenges. Vincent learned that Zara was not a morning person despite her early arrivals at work, that she required at least 1 cup of coffee before conversation was possible. Zara learned that Vincent's stress cleaned, that when he was anxious about something he would reorganize closets at 2 in the morning. They learned each other's rhythms and quirks, adjusted and accommodated, and fell deeper in love with every small discovery. 6 months after Zara moved in, Vincent woke up one morning and knew with absolute certainty what he wanted to do. He wanted to marry her. The knowledge did not come as a surprise so much as a clarification, a recognition of something that had been true for a while. He loved Zara Mitchell more than he had known it was possible to love another person. He wanted to build a life with her, a family. He wanted to make it official and permanent in every way possible, so he started planning. Vincent had negotiated billion-dollar deals, but planning a marriage proposal made him more nervous than any business meeting ever had. He wanted it to be perfect, meaningful, something that would matter to Zara specifically rather than some generic grand gesture. He called her sister Emma for advice. "I want to propose," he told her over coffee at a neutral location, away from anywhere Zara might accidentally see them. "But I have no idea how. What would actually mean something to her?" Emma studied him for a long moment. "You really love my sister?" "More than anything." "Okay. Then here is what you need to know about Zara. She does not care about big public displays or expensive things. What matters to her is thoughtfulness, personal meaning. The fact that you are asking me instead of just buying the biggest diamond you can find already tells me you understand that." Emma leaned forward. "Propose somewhere that matters to your relationship. Make it about the two of you, not about impressing anyone else." Vincent thought about it and realized the answer was obvious. 2 weeks later, on a Saturday morning when snow had been predicted overnight, Vincent woke Zara up early. "Why are we up at dawn?" she groaned, burrowing into the pillows. "Because I want to show you something," Vincent said. "Trust me." Zara cracked one eye open, suspicious but intrigued. "This better be good, Mercer." They dressed warmly and drove to Vincent's building, the one where they had first really connected. The parking garage was empty this early, quiet and echoing. Vincent parked in his usual spot and led Zara by the hand to where her old car had been before she sold it after moving in with him. "This is where it all started," Vincent said, stopping in the empty space. "This is where I first cleared your car, where you first caught me, where we had our first real conversation." He turned to face her, taking both her hands. "This is where I fell in love with you, Zara. Right here in this ordinary parking garage, doing something simple and kind because I could not help myself." Zara's eyes were already filling with tears. "Vincent, you asked me once what I felt when I looked at you, and I said hope. That is still true. You gave me hope that I could have more than just success, that I could have a real life, a real partnership, real love." Vincent took a breath, his heart hammering. "You made me want to be better, to do better, to stop hiding behind work and actually show up for my own life." He let go of her hands and dropped to one knee. Zara's hands flew to her mouth, tears spilling over. "Zara Mitchell, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. You are my best friend, my partner, the person I want to tell everything to. You make me laugh, you challenge me. You love me even when I am being ridiculous about things." Vincent pulled out the ring box, opening it to reveal a simple but beautiful diamond on a platinum band. "I want to spend the rest of my life clearing metaphorical snow from your path. I want to build a home with you, a family. I want everything." His voice cracked with emotion. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," Zara said immediately, dropping to her knees in front of him. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Vincent slid the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, and then Zara was kissing him, both of them crying and laughing at the same time. They stayed there on the cold concrete floor of the parking garage, holding each other, and Vincent felt complete in a way he had not known was possible. "I love you so much," Zara said against his lips. "I love you, and I am going to marry you, and we are going to be so happy." "We already are," Vincent replied. "This just makes it official." They eventually got off the floor and went back to the apartment, where Vincent had champagne waiting and a breakfast spread from Zara's favorite bakery. They called family and friends, shared the news, and spent the day celebrating. Emma cried when Zara told her, then demanded to talk to Vincent. "If you ever hurt her, I will end you," she said pleasantly. "But I do not think you will. Welcome to the family, Vincent." Thomas was equally emotional, though he tried to hide it behind gruff comments about how it was about time. "Your parents would have loved her," he told Vincent, voice thick. "They would have been so proud of the man you have become." "I hope so," Vincent replied. "I know so." They decided on a relatively short engagement. Neither of them saw the point in waiting, and the wedding planning process proved to be surprisingly fun rather than stressful. Zara wanted something intimate, family and close friends only, and Vincent was happy to give her whatever she wanted. They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the same restaurant where they had their first date. Marco cried and provided all the food, insisting it was his wedding gift. The guest list was only 50 people, the ones who truly mattered to both of them. Zara wore a simple but elegant dress, and Vincent could not take his eyes off her the entire day. When they exchanged vows, Vincent spoke from the heart. "Zara, you saved me from a life that looked successful but felt empty. You taught me that real wealth is not in bank accounts but in moments like this, surrounded by people we love. You are my home, my heart, my everything. I promise to always be honest with you, to support your dreams, to laugh at your jokes even when they are terrible. I promise to keep showing up, keep trying, keep loving you with everything I have." Zara was crying, and so was half the room. "Vincent, you are the most unexpected gift. You saw me when I felt invisible, valued me when I doubted myself, and loved me in a way that made me believe in love stories again." Her voice shook, but stayed strong. "You cleared snow from my car in secret, and in doing so you cleared a path to my heart. I promise to be your partner in all things, to challenge you when you need it and support you always. I promise to build a life with you that is full of joy and laughter and ordinary, wonderful moments. I promise to love you forever." There was not a dry eye in the place when they kissed. The reception was loud and joyful, exactly what they both wanted. They danced, ate too much of Marco's incredible food, and celebrated with the people who had supported them along the way. Vincent's business associates were notably absent, and he did not miss them at all. "Best day of my life," he whispered to Zara during their first dance. "Mine too," she agreed. "Though I have a feeling there are a lot more best days ahead." "Absolutely." They honeymooned in Italy for 2 weeks, and Vincent made sure his team knew he was completely unreachable except for absolute emergencies. None came. The world kept turning without his constant attention, and he and Zara got to simply be newlyweds, exploring cities and eating incredible food and making love in gorgeous hotels. "I could get used to this," Zara said one evening, sitting on their hotel balcony overlooking the Amalfi Coast. "So could I. We should make it a regular thing. Annual trips, just the two of us. Deal." They returned home to their real lives, but something had shifted. They were not just partners anymore, but a married couple, a team in the most official sense. They talked about the future more concretely now, about what they wanted to build together. "I want kids," Zara said one night, curled up with Vincent on the couch. "Not right away, but eventually. 2, maybe 3. "I want that too," Vincent replied, imagining it. Children who had Zara's smile and his determination, a house full of noise and life. "How long is eventually?" "A couple of years. I want to establish myself more in my career first, and I think we should just enjoy being married for a while." "That sounds perfect." They spent the next 2 years doing exactly that. Zara continued to excel in her career, taking on bigger projects and earning a reputation as one of the most innovative architects at her firm. Vincent expanded his business in new directions, focusing on sustainable development and affordable housing projects that felt more meaningful than pure profit-driven work. They traveled frequently, taking advantage of Vincent's flexible schedule and Zara's accumulated vacation time. They hosted dinners for friends and family, turning their penthouse into a real home filled with laughter and love. They adopted a dog, a rescue mutt named Charlie, who worshipped them both and added chaos and joy in equal measure. Life was good. Better than good. It was exactly what Vincent had not known he was missing all those years ago when he was just building an empire and calling it enough. On their second anniversary, Zara had news. "I am pregnant," she said over dinner, her expression a mix of excitement and nervousness. Vincent stood up so fast he knocked over his chair. "Really, really. About 8 weeks along. I took 3 tests to be sure." He crossed to her, pulling her up into his arms and holding her tight. "We are having a baby." "We are having a baby," Zara confirmed, and then they were both crying again, happy tears this time. The pregnancy was mostly smooth. Zara had some morning sickness in the first trimester, but otherwise felt good. Vincent was probably too protective, hovering and worrying, but Zara tolerated it with good humor because she knew it came from love. They converted one of the spare rooms into a nursery, painting it a soft yellow and filling it with carefully chosen furniture. Vincent's favorite part was assembling the crib, something tangible he could do to prepare for their child's arrival. "You are going to be such a good dad," Zara said, watching him work. "How do you know?" "Because you care so much. Because you show up. Because you have spent the past 3 years proving that when you love someone, you love them with everything you have." She rested a hand on her growing belly. "This baby is already so loved." So loved," Vincent agreed. Their daughter was born on a snowy morning in February, and the moment Vincent held her, He understood what people meant about your heart existing outside your body. She was tiny and perfect, with Zara's dark hair and eyes that would probably settle into his gray-green. "She is beautiful," he whispered, unable to look away from her. "She is ours," Zara replied, tired but radiant. "What should we name her?" They had discussed names but never settled on anything. Now, looking at his daughter, Vincent knew. "Grace," he said. "For the grace we had in finding each other." "Grace Mercer," Zara tested. "I love it. Hi, Grace. Welcome to the world, baby girl." Parenthood was exhausting and wonderful and utterly transforming. Vincent cut his work schedule even further, unwilling to miss a moment of his daughter's early days. He changed diapers, did midnight feedings, walked the floors with Grace when she would not sleep. He loved every second of it, even the hard parts. Zara went back to work after 3 months, and they figured out a new rhythm. Vincent worked from home more, his team accustomed now to his unconventional schedule. They hired a nanny for when both of them needed to be in the office, but they made sure at least one of them was home every evening for dinner and bedtime. Grace grew, hitting milestones that made them simultaneously proud and nostalgic. First smile, first laugh, first time rolling over. Vincent documented everything, filling albums and cloud storage with photos and videos. "We are going to be those annoying parents who never stop talking about their kid," Zara said one evening, watching Vincent take yet another photo of Grace doing nothing particularly notable. "Absolutely," Vincent agreed without shame. "She is perfect. Everyone should know." When Grace was 18 months old, Zara got pregnant again, this time with twins. "Twins," Vincent repeated, staring at the ultrasound image. "We are having twins." "Apparently so," Zara said, looking slightly overwhelmed. "That is going to be 3 kids under 3, Vincent. We can handle it." "Can we?" He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "We can handle anything together. That is what we do." And they did. The twins, 2 boys they named Harrison and Henry, arrived healthy and loud. The first year was chaos, beautiful, exhausting chaos, and Vincent and Zara tag-teamed their way through it with support from family and friends and a lot of coffee. Vincent looked around his life one evening, children finally asleep, Zara dozing on his shoulder, and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This was what he had been searching for without knowing it. Not the money or the success, though those things had their place. But this. A partner who challenged and loved him, children who depended on him, a home full of life and noise and love. He thought about that morning in the parking garage, the moment he decided to clear Zara's snow. It had been a small gesture, meaningless to anyone but him, but it had changed everything. The years continued to unfold in a beautiful, chaotic pattern. Grace started school and proved to be as bright and curious as both her parents. The twins developed distinct personalities, Harrison serious and thoughtful, Henry wild and adventurous. Vincent and Zara navigated parenthood side by side, sometimes struggling but always united. Vincent's company continued to thrive under the leadership of his COO, proving that success did not require his constant sacrifice. He stayed involved in strategic decisions, but left the daily operations to his capable team. His legacy, he decided, would not be measured in buildings but in the life he built with Zara and their children. Zara became a partner at her firm, the first woman to achieve that role. Vincent threw her a celebration party and gave a toast that made her cry. "To my wife, who proves every day that you can have ambition and balance, success and love. You inspire me constantly." On their 10th anniversary, they went back to the parking garage where it all began. They stood in the spot where Zara's car used to be, holding hands. "Can you believe it has been 10 years?" Zara asked. Best 10 years of my life, Vincent replied. Though I am partial to the most recent ones, the ones with tiny humans who call me Dad. They are pretty great, Zara agreed. She looked up at him, her eyes soft with memory and love. Do you ever regret it, stepping back from work, choosing a quieter life? Never, not for a single second. Vincent pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You gave me everything I did not know I needed, a real life, a family. A reason to come home that matters more than any business deal ever could. You gave me the same thing, Zara said. You saw me when I felt invisible. You loved me for exactly who I was. You cleared my path, literally and figuratively. They stood there for a while, remembering. Then Zara laughed. What? Vincent asked. I am just thinking about how this all started. You clearing snow in secret like some kind of parking garage fairy godfather. If someone had told me then that we would be married with 3 kids, I would never have believed it. If someone had told me that the woman whose car I was clearing would become my whole world, I would have thought they were crazy. Vincent grinned. But here we are, Zara echoed. She reached up and cupped his face. I love you, Vincent Mercer. Thank you for being brave enough to do something kind without knowing where it would lead. I love you, Zara Mercer. Thank you for being brave enough to wait up and catch me. They kissed in the parking garage where their story began, and it felt like coming full circle. From that first morning when Vincent had been just a man doing something kind for a stranger, to this moment where they were partners in every sense of the word. Parents, spouses, best friends. They went home to their children, to Charlie who greeted them with enthusiastic tail wagging, to the life they had built together. That night, after the kids were in bed, they sat on their balcony overlooking the city. What are you thinking about? Zara asked, her head on Vincent's shoulder. I am thinking about how none of the success I achieved before you mattered as much as this. This ordinary evening with you, our kids asleep inside, nothing special happening. Vincent kissed the top of her head. This is what wealth actually looks like. Not bank accounts or buildings, but moments like this. Very philosophical for a Tuesday night. I am a very deep person. Zara laughed, the sound he had fallen in love with all those years ago in a parking garage. You are ridiculous, but you love me anyway. I really do. They sat together as the city lights twinkled below them and Vincent thought about the future. More years with Zara, watching their children grow, building memories and traditions. Maybe more kids, maybe not. It did not matter. Whatever came, they would face it together. The snow would fall again, as it always did. But this time, Vincent would not be clearing it alone in the dark. He would be inside his warm home with his wife and children, living a life richer than any empire he could have built. Sometimes, he thought, the bravest thing you could do was not to achieve more but to be present for what you already had. To choose love over ambition, connection over control, ordinary wonderful moments over extraordinary lonely ones. Vincent Mercer had built a fortune, but his real wealth was measured in smiles and laughter, in small hands holding his, in a wife who saw him completely and loved him anyway. And it all started with clearing snow from a stranger's car, never expecting to be caught, never imagining it would lead to everything. But that was the thing about love, Vincent had learned. It showed up in unexpected ways, transformed ordinary moments into extraordinary memories and turned strangers into family. He looked at Zara, his wife, his partner, his home, and smiled. What? She asked, catching his expression. Nothing, Vincent said. Everything, I am just happy. Me too, Zara replied, lacing her fingers through his. Me too. And they sat together under the stars, two people who had found each other in the most unlikely way and built a love story that would last a lifetime. The kind of story that started with a simple act of kindness and grew into something neither of them could have predicted, but both of them would choose, again and again, every single day. Inside, their children slept peacefully. Outside, the city hummed with life. And here, on this balcony, Vincent and Zara held each other close and knew with absolute certainty that they were exactly where they were meant to be, together. Always together. The end came not with drama but with contentment. Years stretched ahead of them, full of potential and promise. But in this moment, they had everything they needed. Each other, their family, and the knowledge that they had chosen well. Vincent had cleared snow from Zara's car, never expecting her to catch him. But she had. And in catching him, she had given him the greatest gift. A life worth living, a love worth keeping, and a future worth building. That was more than enough. That was everything.